necessary regarding this incident, and the state agreed to recommend probation as a sentence with 120 days of condition time stayed for the discretion of the probation agent. Now, before I begin with my comments, I do want to invite a number of members of Mr. Mitchell's family to the prosecutor's table to provide their comments to the court. I'd first invite Mr. Mitchell's wife. Nice and slow into the microphone. Okay. The court needs you to slow down. He's going to interrupt and say slow down. Okay. Take your time.
Morning, ma'am. If you could please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Deasia Harmon, D-E-A-S-I-A-H-A-R-M-O-N.
Thank you, ma'am. And whatever you want to say today, go ahead.
I am very displeased with the justice system. I'm very displeased with the justice system. I don't feel like he deserves probation. I don't feel like he's earned probation. This person, Mr. Turner, knew exactly what he was doing when he took my husband's life, when he took my husband away from our children, away from his mother, away from his siblings. My husband was a wonderful person. And to sit here and know that there is no consequence for this person's actions is disheartening and it's disgusting. I want this person and his family to suffer like me and my family have had to do over this last year. I want this person to suffer, to have to sit and live with his decisions for the rest of his life, because now I have to sit here and explain to my children why their father is never coming home, why they can't talk to him, why they can't see him, why he can't tuck them in at night, because of what this person has done to our family. I want you to suffer. I want you to suffer every day. Every day, I want you and your family to suffer because you knew what you were doing and you did not stop. As he pleaded for his life, as y'all laid on him and y'all beat him, you knew exactly what you were doing and you knew it was wrong and you didn't stop.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Judge. I'd next like to invite Mr. Mitchell's mother up to the prosecutor's table. Nice and slow. Make sure you're speaking in the microphone so that everything. And if you might interrupt me to say slow down or something like that. Okay.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
If you please state and spell your name for the record.
Brenda Giles, B-R-E-N-D-A-G-I-L-E-S.
Thank you, Mrs. Giles. Whatever you want to say, go ahead, please.
Well, my name is Brenda Giles, the mother of Devontae Mitchell. June 30th, 2024 would be forever etched in my spirit.
That Sunday evening, the doorbell rang, and there were 2 female officers there to inform me that my son, Devontae Mitchell, was deceased. And I was shown a picture of him, and I immediately passed out and hit the floor. I blanked out completely. This was the worst night of my life. The fact that I have to type this letter is very hard. I am at a loss for words. This is the worst news a parent to hear. My son is supposed to bury me, not me bury him. My life has never been the same. I'm mentally and physically messed up. I barely sleep. My eating habits are messed up. My entire life is shattered. My life will never be the same. I'm asking for the maximum sentence for each of these individuals that played a part in the brutal murder of my son, Devontae Mitchell. They have no reason to put their hands on him, nor any reason to restrain him. The video clearly shows my son running away from these individuals that was harming him. Not one time did I see my son, Devontae Mitchell, being aggressive or a threat to anyone. Their claim of my son being aggressive and cursing and disturbing still to this day has not been unfound. There were many videos that surfaced. None of the videos showed my son harming anyone. This murder was senseless, completely unfair and uncalled for. These men that murdered my son need to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. They don't deserve any mercy because it was clearly on the video when my son was begging for help and for his life. They had no mercy on my baby. They continued to beat him and restrain him even after he was deceased. They had completely no regard for my son's life. Therefore, there should be no leniency with sentencing these murders to prison. My son, Devontae Mitchell, is gone for life. Even when justice is served, there will always be a void in my life, my heart forever. Put yourself in my shoes. How would you feel if there were one of your children? You have the power to determine how these sentences transpires. I am praying that you give me and my family satisfactory closure by doing the right thing, by making sure justice will be served, by giving these individuals the maximum sentence allowed by the law. Respectfully, Brenda Giles.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, and I'm so sorry for your loss. Do we have a third speaker?
Just one moment, Judge.
Okay.
On board. Mr. Moore is here to speak as well. Just when you're reading statements, sometimes you read it faster. Okay.
Good morning, sir. Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Sean Moore, SHAWN MOORE. I was one of the people that videoed that, not knowing that I was filming him die. On that day, I was not supposed to be there. But something told me to walk that day. And my son stayed in the dorms. They went to college down there. They no longer go to college down there because of this. And I heard the screams before I saw the crowd. The sound that pulled me to the Hyatt that sound of a constant. And when I walked up, I witnessed something that I'll never forget, ever. And I worked in violence prevention off and on for 15 years. I walked up as Mr. Mitchell was being beaten by the older guy. And I asked, what had he done? And I was telling the guards that they couldn't be on his neck like that. That you can't do that. That's not your role. If he did something, hold him till the police come. They looked at me and continued to apply pressure. He stopped beating him, but he wouldn't get off his neck. Instead of calling the police, which is what should have happened, I watched as the supervisor ordered the other cars not to move. He turned to me and tried to justify his violence, claiming that Devontae had been trying to harm somebody. My response was clear. That is why you call the police. They're 2 blocks away. Call the police. They didn't stop. Even after Devontae had stopped struggling, even after I said get off him, he's not fighting anymore, they continue to apply pressure and kneel on him. I watched as he took his last breaths, not realizing I was watching a man die. And I could do nothing about it. I did nothing about it. Since that day, you know, I wake up every night. I hear that. I hear that. And I see their faces. I don't see Devontae's face no more. I see the faces of the people that killed him. And I try to stay away from the Hyatt. I don't take as many phone calls as I used to from families needing help. You know, I know the judges are elected to uphold the law. The law was broken that day. This was not restraint. This was not protection of the public. This was vengeance. Devontae was already struggling with mental illness and addiction. Life had already punished him, was punishing him. He had the stigma that he had to deal with, where society would forever look down on him. What happened was not justice. The sentence, no matter what sentence that they received, is not justice. It was an execution carried out under the direction of the supervisor. Somebody that was entrusted with authority.
Mr. Moore, I'm going to ask you to wrap up, please.
Okay. Devontae's life had value. Sentencing today cannot bring him back, but it can send a message that in our city, people battling illnesses or addiction are not disposable. No person is disposable. And that when those entrusted with responsibility break the law, they will be held fully accountable. They had a job to protect Devontae just like they had a job to protect everybody, every resident in that hotel, and they failed in their duties. And they took that man's life unjustly.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Back to Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you, Judge. So we're here because on Sunday, June 30th of 2024, at about 4:30 in the afternoon, Mr. Mitchell's life was taken. Mr. Mitchell was a 43-year-old man. He was killed in the driveway in front of the downtown Hyatt at 333 West Kilbourne Ave here in Milwaukee. I'm going to play a video that the Milwaukee Police Department put together, which is kind of a amalgamation of various different camera angles inside the Hyatt, outside the Hyatt, which shows a majority of the incident as it occurred. It does not include all the videos that were taken from bystanders, but I will kind of supplement what you're seeing here with what those videos show as well. But before I do that, I want to talk just briefly about some of the sentencing factors that I think it's important for the court to consider when fashioning a sentence here. And the first one I think about when we're talking about homicide is safety of the community. So what sentence can the court issue that will ensure that the community is safe from the defendant, as well as others who endeavor to take actions that are similar to the ones that the defendant, and in this case, defendants have taken in this case. I think that this sentence and the conviction need to send a clear message that this type of action will be prosecuted. I think it needs to send a message that human life, to echo Mr. Moore and to echo Mr. Mitchell's family members, human life has value. No matter who a person is, where they've come from, what issues they're struggling with, their lives have value. And this court system will respect the value of that life. The second factor that I think of is justice for the victim, Mr. Mitchell himself. And of course, in a homicide case, you've heard me say this before, you'll hear me say this again, but death is permanent. Mr. Mitchell cannot come back from this. All four defendants will go on living their lives, albeit impacted from this incident. Nobody is as impacted as Mr. Mitchell is. Death is permanent. He has no second chances. He has no chance to become the man that he dreamed of being. He has no chance to watch his children grow old, enjoy more time with his family. All of that has been robbed from Mr. Mitchell. There's never any real justice that Mr. Mitchell will achieve, no matter what the sentence is today. The next thing that I think about, the next factor, is justice for Mr. Mitchell's family. And you've heard from some of his family members already. You'll continue to hear from more of his family members throughout the day. But this is grief that will last a lifetime for all of them. This will not be a life sentence for any of the four co-defendants today, but it will be a life sentence for every single one of his family members. Birthdays, holidays, these are no longer moments that are free from pain and grief. These are moments where they will remember Mr. Mitchell, a father, a son, a brother, a loved one. A light in their lives is no longer with them, and that's something that they're going to have to suffer with for the rest of their lives. My hope is that as this process and as the portion of their grief, which encompasses this criminal justice piece, comes to an end, they'll be able to move forward in the processing of their grief, knowing that the four co-defendants have been convicted. But I know, just based on hearing their statements today and having spoke with them many times over the course of the last year, that this is going to be a very real, it's going to be pain for a very long time, for lack of a better term. I also want the court to consider justice for the community at large. I think the community needs to be put on notice that actions that result in the death of one of our community members will be met with serious consequence. I think the community needs to be able to rely on the justice system, that this is a building where members of the community can come for just resolution of incidents like this. Now, before I get into the video, one of the first things that I want to get into is Mr. Mitchell's cause of death. The medical examiner in this case ruled that Mr. Mitchell's cause of death was restraint asphyxia. And what that means in layman's terms is that Mr. Mitchell's body was unable to get enough oxygen due to the way that he was positioned on the ground. The 4 co-defendants are charged in this case because they're responsible for holding him in that position on the ground. Now, I anticipate that when defense has a chance to speak, they're going to explain some mitigating factors that also contribute to Mr. Mitchell's death. You're going to hear that Mr. Mitchell had substances in his system that could have been responsible or played a role in his death. You're going to hear that he had other medical conditions with regard to his heart and his weight that could have had an impact and played a role in this restraint asphyxia. But one thing that I know, and one thing that I think will be made clear when you review this video, is that the only reason that he is on his stomach is because these 4 men held him on his stomach. The theory of prosecution in this case related to the felony murder is that holding a person against their will, interfering with their ability to move, is a battery. And in this case, the battery caused the death of Mr. Mitchell. Now, what you're going to see in the moments that lead up to that restraint is a violent beating of Mr. Mitchell. And it's difficult to watch. We'll see multiple punches thrown, most of which are thrown by Mr. Turner. You are going to see Mr. Erickson striking Mr. Mitchell in the head with a baton. You're going to see Mr. Erickson kick him in the head while he's down on the ground. And all of these actions are extremely hard to watch. It's somewhat paradoxical that those are not the actions, while aggravating, that cause his death. What ultimately caused his death is that restraint on his stomach. In talking with law enforcement partners, many of them, when they've reviewed this video with me, tell me that their training is that if you're going to arrest somebody, if you're going to hold somebody, you've got to get them off their stomach, because something like this can happen if a person has certain health complications, and that's clearly not what happened here. So now I'm going to ask for the court for permission to display this video. It's about 15 minutes long. I'm going to play it in its entirety. I'm going to pause it at various times to tell you what we're seeing and provide some context. I've got the video here on a disc. I've marked it as Exhibit A, and I'm going to move it into the record.
Is there any objection, Mr. Lass?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Exhibit A is received and marked for today's sentencing hearing. The same display will be on both screens. Deputy, I'm actually going to ask you to turn, if you could turn this screen to face the gallery so that the gallery can see what the court is seeing. And I have a screen over here. All right, I'll ask Mr. Flaherty to proceed, please.
So, Judge, Exhibit A is on the screen now. As you can see, it's a video that has 14 minutes and 46 seconds. I'm sorry, it is just come off the screen. There it is. Okay, what you're seeing here is kind of a fisheye lens of the interior lobby of the Hyatt. One second, technical difficulties. Okay, you're seeing the interior lobby of the Hyatt. It's approximately 4:30 in the afternoon on June 30th of last year, 2024. You can see some doors here. That is the opening to Kilbourne. Just outside these doors is the location where Mr. Mitchell will ultimately take his last breath. I'm going to play the video and narrate what we're seeing as it happens. Here you see Mr. Mitchell for the first time. He's running from the Martin Luther King side of the lobby, and he runs into a little store that's on the Kilbourne side of the lobby. And now we see him moving towards the back, the elevator bay where there's a bathroom here. Now, Judge, as you know from the complaint, that's a women's bathroom. There were 2 women in there at the time. I'm going to pause it for just a second. Now, there's no evidence that Mr. Mitchell intended to harm those women. There's evidence that they were afraid because an unknown man entered the bathroom, and it appeared that he was afraid or running from something. I expect that when the defense has a chance to speak, you're going to hear that he was likely under the influence of something. Sorry, I don't know why the...
That's all right, it happened.
Thanks. But he does go into the women's bathroom, and he does kind of stand with his back towards the door as if he's trying to prevent somebody from coming in. The women are understandably frightened, although unharmed by Mr. Mitchell. And now we see Mr. Turner for the first time. He approaches that bathroom, he gets the door open, and he pulls Mr. Mitchell out. And what you're going to see now is Mr. Turner kind of pulling Mr. Mitchell through the elevator bay and begin to strike him in the lobby. And the orange is one of the women who was in the bathroom. So here we see Mr. Turner with his left hand holding on to the shirt of Mr. Mitchell as they walk through the elevator bay. So pausing there, you saw Mr. Mitchell briefly go to the ground. We don't have the ability to see that exact moment, but it reasons that one of these two gentlemen, either Mr. Turner or this is a hotel guest, the man in the maroon shirt, pushed him to the ground. You can see that a struggle ensues. Now, in fairness, it is clear that Mr. Turner and that hotel guest are attempting to get Mr. Mitchell to leave the hotel here. As they get Mr. Mitchell to the door, you can see that the physical altercation then reignites. You can see that they're now dragging Mr. Mitchell as he's on the ground here. I'm going to pause just for the second. Now, Judge, I will acknowledge that on some level, Mr. Turner, who was employed as a security guard, though he was off duty at the time, may be entitled to use of some force to get Mr. Mitchell to leave. I think that what we're about to observe on this video is in excess of what force would be necessary and allowed in order to get Mr. Mitchell to leave. Paused it at 2:46. What we've just observed is something interesting that I want to comment on. The first thing I want to note is that the hotel guest in the maroon has been involved in the attempt to remove Mr. Mitchell from the hotel. However, he has not thrown any punches. And the behavior of Mr. Turner stands in stark contrast to that. And as you're about to see, Mr. Turner is about to throw multiple punches at Mr. Mitchell. Now, what you just observed is the woman who works at the front desk here strike Mr. Mitchell with a broomstick. I'm going to move back to 239. You'll see her enter, grab that broom, and strike him. Mr. Turner appears to wave her off. You see there with his right hand. The hotel guest falls, and then Mr. Turner just strikes him multiple times in the face. So now you're looking from the angle from an exterior camera. We've moved back a little bit in time. You're going to see the front desk worker strike him with that broom, and Mr. Turner subsequently strike Mr. Mitchell in the face multiple times again. Pausing here at 3:33, the man that we see here enter in the black hat and the black shirt is Mr. Johnson Carson. He is one of the other co-defendants. This is the first time we see him in the video. So as you can see, we've already got approximately 3 minutes of interaction between Mr. Turner and Mr. Mitchell before Mr. Carson, who's also an employee of the hotel, arrives to the altercation here. He is not a security guard like Mr. Turner is. Continuing to play at 3:33. Pausing here, now we see Herbert Williamson, another of the 4 co-defendants in this case, arrive to the scene. He is a bellhop. Continuing to play at 3:47. So as we can see here at 4:01, there's some communication between Mr. Turner and the others. Mr. Turner has his hands kind of out like this, or Mr. Mitchell has his hands out like this as they communicate. Obviously, there's no sound here, so we can't hear what that communication is. And now, for the first time, I've paused at 4:08, we see Mr. Erickson, another and the final of the 4 co-actors here, approach Mr. Mitchell. We've moved to a different camera angle that's a little bit further away from the entrance, and you can see that the 4 men, or rather the 3 men, Mr. Turner, Mr. Erickson, and Mr. Johnson Carson take Mr. Mitchell to the ground. Herbert Williamson's feet are visible still at the entryway of the hotel. We can see Mr. Turner's right arm cocked back as he's about to strike Mr. Mitchell. I also would ask you to focus on Mr. Erickson in this moment because he's about to kick Mr. Mitchell in the head. Now, one of the things I want to note at this point, and I paused at 4:25, is that acknowledging that there may be some right to use force to get Mr. Mitchell to exit the hotel, Mr. Mitchell's presentation of any perceived danger at this point is over. He's on the ground. He is not putting anybody in danger in this moment. So I think we've kind of crossed a threshold at this point that I think is relevant for the court's consideration. We see that Mr. Erickson and Mr. Turner are the 2 who are most engaged physically with Mr. Mitchell, and that makes sense. They're the security guards. We saw Mr. Erickson just dispose of his walkie-talkie. Mr. Williamson and Mr. Johnson Carson are standing by, awaiting instructions, which they will ultimately receive from Mr. Erickson. Now, I paused it right there at 4:53. What you just observed is Mr. Erickson look at Mr. Johnson Carson and Mr. Williamson and give them an instruction. Again, we don't know exactly what that instruction is. Obviously, all 4 of the co-defendants have been interviewed, and Mr. Williamson has informed us that Mr. Erickson told him to help with holding Mr. Mitchell down. The theme that we hear throughout this entire investigation is that Mr. Erickson is the leader of this group. He's the one who's giving instructions. He's the one who's telling the various co-actors what to do and how to hold Mr. Mitchell. Continuing at 4:53. And of course, right after that instruction is received, we see Mr. Williamson and Mr. Johnson Carson approach him. And we see them put substantial weight onto the body of Mr. Mitchell. We see Mr. Williamson pushing down on his back with his knee, also his head. We see Mr. Turner grabbing a hold of Mr. Mitchell's arms, attempting to put them behind his back. I think it's also important to note that, Judge, at this point, the police had been called by the front desk, so somebody at the front desk had made a call to 911. And at this point, I don't know, in fact, like I said, because we don't have audio from this particular video, it's hard to know what exactly the four co-defendants knew at this time about whether law enforcement had been called. So, consistent with what I described earlier, right now we see Mr. Williamson on the front of Mr. Mitchell's body. We see Mr. Johnson Carson on his legs restraining him, and we see Mr. Turner on the left side of Mr. Mitchell's body. Meanwhile, Mr. Erickson is kind of standing in front telling people what to do. Mr. Erickson has just retrieved a baton from his waistband. You can see it there. It looks at first like he's trying to use it to pry Mr. Mitchell's arm to try to get it off him, or to get it to his back. I believe you're going to see Mr. Erickson subsequently strike Mr. Mitchell with that baton. Again, we see Mr. Erickson giving orders. We see the four men putting weight on Mr. Mitchell's back. He's on his stomach. This is the beginning of restraint asphyxia. We see Mr. Turner with his phone. Mr. Turner is calling 911. Sorry, not yet. We will see him put the phone up to his ear and make a phone call. And we do know that Mr. Turner does, in fact, call law enforcement for assistance. And you can see Mr. Turner with the phone up to the left side of his ear. He's calling for help. We can see at this point that Mr. Mitchell is still breathing. You just saw his chest rise and fall. We see that Mr. Williamson begins to take pressure off him. While Mr. Turner still has his right hand kind of in the central portion of Mr. Mitchell's back. Mr. Johnson Carson is still on his legs while Mr. Erickson is holding Mr. Mitchell's right arm. Okay, here we are at 9:31, and we see that Mr. Mitchell attempts to get up and then subdue him again. The struggle continues. You just saw Mr. Erickson remove the baton again from his waistband, and you see him striking what appears to be Mr. Mitchell's head. You can see Mr. Mitchell's right hand. I'm pausing it here. You can see Mr. Mitchell's right hand kind of reaching out underneath Mr. Erickson here. We're at the point now where there are a number of civilians who are standing by and recording. Some of them, you heard Mr. Moore talk about how he recorded. And this is the point where I believe Mr. Moore's recording starts. We see a portion of that strike from Mr. Erickson. We can hear Mr. Mitchell gasping and begging to be released, asking for help, pleading for help. We hear Mr. Erickson say, "This is what happens when you go into the ladies' bathroom," or something like that. Difficult to watch. Continuing at 10:14. We can see Mr. Erickson addressing the crowd that is gathered. And I think what's important to note here, and we are at Mr. Turner's sentencing right now. Mr. Erickson's going to be sentenced later, but while we're showing this video, I just think it's important for the court to note that there are different, and I think the court is aware of the state's perspective on how there are different levels of culpability and criminal liability in this case based on the mental state of the 4 co-defendants, right? And so here we are in Mr. Turner's sentencing, and I just want to address the differences between the behavior that we see from Mr. Turner and Mr. Erickson in this moment. We see Mr. Turner, who admittedly was among the most violent at first, but he is also one of the people who calls 911 for help, right? He is not engaging with the crowd. Meanwhile, we see Mr. Erickson, who is telling the crowd, "This is what happens when you go into the women's bathroom." I think that's a different mental state from what we see from the other 3 co-defendants, right? Mr. Erickson appears to be coming at this not from a position of trying to contain this situation and de-escalate, but rather from a cause and effect authoritarian, I'm going to do this because Mr. Mitchell had done something bad, as if he's enacting some sort of justice by holding him and striking him like that. We see that from Mr. Erickson. We don't see that from the other 3 co-defendants. And that's one of the reasons why, from the beginning, the state perceived Mr. Erickson as the most culpable here. And that's one of the reasons why, when it came time to figure out what the appropriate resolution is that the state sought to gain the cooperation of the 3 co-actors, Mr. Turner, Mr. Johnson Carson, and Mr. Williamson, right? Because it was clear from the beginning that Mr. Erickson was the person who was kind of the leader. He was telling everyone what to do. And I think another thing that's relevant for the court's consideration here is that the initial physical confrontation occurred between Mr. Turner and Mr. Mitchell. And not to say that the physical confrontation was appropriate, but I think it gives us some insight into the mental state of Mr. Turner in that moment, where he is agitated, hot, kind of involved in this physical confrontation. 4 minutes after it begins, Mr. Erickson, who is the security guard who is on duty at that point, comes in cold. And instead of de-escalating this situation, instead of being a cooler mind, somebody who has not been involved in this physical confrontation already, instead of de-escalating and calming things down, he takes the opposite track. And I think that that's an important distinction between Mr. Erickson's conduct and Mr. Turner's conduct here. And that's the basis for the state's difference in handling these 2 cases. So with that, I'm going to continue to play from 1027. And to expound on that, it's somewhat of a dichotomy, right? Because we see, and what's most shocking to see in this video is the violence enacted by Mr. Turner when he punches Mr. Mitchell multiple times in the head. But what ultimately causes the death here is the instruction of Mr. Erickson and the restraint that Mr. Erickson kind of instructs these men to exact upon the body of Mr. Mitchell. We're at 11:57 into the video. Mr. Mitchell's no longer moving. Judge, it's hard to know exactly when Mr. Mitchell took his last breath. But as you've seen for the last minute, Mr. Mitchell has not moved. As you can see, officers have just arrived on scene. We're at 13 minutes and 45 seconds into the video. Mr. Mitchell is now face down on the ground while officers approach. I'll pause the video there, Judge, and remove my screen from the TV. Unless the court has any follow-up questions about the video or would like to see any portions again, that'll conclude the visual portion of my presentation. But I'd ask the court, is there any part of that video that the court needs to see again in order to fully understand what happened?
I don't believe I need to see any portions of the video again, but I may have questions later on.
Thank you. Now, Judge, when anytime I get a referral in for a homicide charge, I try to kind of categorize the behavior based on, or the criminal liability based on the evidence that we have in front of us. And I don't think it'll come as any surprise to the court that this presented a very difficult set of facts in terms of what the evidence showed about how this incident played out. The first issue, of course, was the cause of death, which took a number of weeks in order to ascertain from the medical examiner's office. And then you look at the conduct of each individual defendant and try to kind of assess what their mental state is. Obviously, it's impossible to look into somebody's mind to know what they were thinking. The key is to focus on the actions that they took and the statements that they made, both before, after, and during the incident, as well as what we observe on video, right? And as I look at the evidence in this case, while incredibly gruesome and horrific to watch, I don't believe that the evidence here supports a conviction for intentional homicide. I don't think that what we see here is these men intending to kill Mr. Mitchell. I also don't think that they thought that they might kill him in doing what they were doing, especially in the case of Mr. Turner, who's calling the police while he's holding Mr. Mitchell. I think that that is one of the mitigating factors that I note about Mr. Turner's actions here. He's calling the police for help. If he thought that Mr. Mitchell was going to die, I don't think anybody would ever say that he'd call the police on himself while he's taking action that could kill another human being. I think that that's instructive as to his mental state. Is this a negligent homicide? I think so. I think it is a negligent homicide. I think that these men should have known that what they did or what they were doing had the capacity to kill Mr. Mitchell. However, in the state of Wisconsin, negligent homicide is not a law. There is no negligent homicide unless it is by use of a dangerous weapon or while driving a motor vehicle. So negligent homicide was not an option that the state had in terms of issuing this case. And that left the state with felony murder here on top of a battery. And what we do see here is battery, lots and lots of battery. Most of the battery does not cause the death of Mr. Mitchell. What causes the death of Mr. Mitchell is the interference with his ability to roll from his stomach to his side and cause that restraint asphyxia. It's important to note that the medical examiner opined that even if there was no force applied to the back of Mr. Mitchell, lying in a prone position on his stomach could have been enough to kill him. But the reason that he was on his stomach, even if there were no force, is because these four men disallowed him from moving from his stomach. And that's why we find ourselves here today. And that's why the charge and the conviction for Mr. Turner is felony murder. Now, I've already talked to you about the differences that I see in the culpability between Mr. Turner and Mr. Erickson. I think we can also distinguish between Mr. Turner and Mr. Williamson and Johnson Carson, who I tend to put in the same category. They are not security guards. They're employed by the hotel, but they are employed in another capacity. They obviously arrive after the initial confrontation. And they kind of, you can see on the video, they kind of stand around at first, and they're unsure of what to do until they get the instruction from Mr. Erickson. Mr. Williamson does put force down onto the back of Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Johnson Carson does strike him a number of times. But that battery and that physical confrontation between those two and Mr. Turner, I think, is quite different. And that's one of the reasons why we've resolved those cases different. As I mentioned before, this interaction on video is extremely difficult to watch. Mr. Turner clearly throws the most punches. It's hard to say exactly, even acknowledging that there is some right to use force to get Mr. Mitchell to leave, it's hard to know exactly how much is allowed, but I think that regardless, this surpassed the amount that would have been allowed. I would be remiss if I didn't describe the mitigating facts for Mr. Turner, however. I will note that he approached the state first with an offer to resolve. He approached as soon as we got through the preliminary portions of the process and indicated that he would be open to entering a guilty plea to the felony murder charge, as well as testifying against the various co-actors should it become necessary. And I think he deserves credit for that. I think that there is frankly, value in the rehabilitative process for a person who has done something like this to swiftly take accountability for what they've done, to admit that they were wrong, right? And through his attorney, I've learned that Mr. Turner is seeking to take accountability and move forward with his life, accept what has happened and his role in the death of Mr. Mitchell and move on. And I anticipate that we'll hear more from that. And I think it's worth noting that Mr. Turner was the first to come to the state, and that is part of one of the factors that contributes to the state's perspective on how the court should sentence Mr. Turner. As I already mentioned, Mr. Turner does call the police for help, and I distinguished between the conduct of Mr. Turner and Mr. Erickson. I think that's important in terms of how Mr. Turner is already involved in this heated interaction, contrasted with how Mr. Erickson comes later and declines to de-escalate the situation. And I think that's important to consider. I'll note that Mr. Turner has no criminal history. And of course, I've described, and I think the court probably has a clear understanding now of why the state's perspective from the beginning was that Mr. Erickson was most culpable. The state wanted to put itself in a position where it would have the strongest case possible against Mr. Erickson. And that meant securing the testimony of Mr. Turner, Mr. Williamson, and Mr. Johnson Carson. And that's the strategy that the state employed here in order to accomplish what its main goal was, which was to achieve accountability for all four of these co-actors, but also make sure we had the strongest case possible so that we could achieve accountability for the co-actor who we perceived to be the most culpable for the death of Mr. Mitchell. And that's what we were able to do, and that's because Mr. Turner offered to enter a guilty plea to the felony murder and testify against Mr. Erickson should the need be. Judge, overall, this is a tragic situation. I think Mr. Mitchell's family is left heartbroken, they're left grieving, and my hope is that the court can fashion a sentence that most accurately reflects all of the sentencing factors and achieve some level of justice for this family to the extent possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so I've heard from the state. Now I'm going to turn to the defense. Mr. Last.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to try to break up my remarks kind of into two different parts. First, I'm going to address Mr. Turner and his background from more of a personal level. And then the second part, I will dive more into kind of our view of the facts of the case and address a couple remarks regarding that. But I do believe that probationary sentence for Mr. Turner under the circumstances is appropriate in this case. I do not believe that placing Mr. Turner on probation in light of what he pled guilty to and accepted responsibility for would unduly depreciate the seriousness of his actions and would not present a message first to say that Mr. Turner's conduct is acceptable, but it would ensure that he is held accountable for the choices that he made that day, but would not unduly punish him for those choices. As counsel indicated, and as the court's aware from a previous bail motion that I filed at the beginning of this case, Mr. Turner has no prior criminal record. He's now 36 years old. Mr. Turner stopped going to school in the 12th grade. There was some family issues, some family reasons that required Mr. Turner to not complete high school. And unfortunately, after that, never made it back to school. But for Mr. Turner's entire adult life and up until this case, was fully employed. There was I don't believe any time in his life that he wasn't working. Following dropping out of high school in the 12th grade, he worked for 8 years at McDonald's. Following that, that's when he started doing security guard work. Mr. Turner, I believe, started his employment at the hotel, I believe in 2020. At the time of this incident, I think he had been there almost 5 years at that point, maybe a little bit under. Mr. Turner has no alcohol or drug issues. He does not have any diagnosed mental health issues. He is married. He has 2 children, 2 young children.
Okay, no comments from the gallery, please. I'm going to be hearing, I've heard from the state, I'm hearing from the defense. If I hear more comments from the gallery, the deputies will be asking anyone speaking in the gallery to leave. Back to Mr. Last.
Thank you. And since this case being filed, he was let go from working at the hotel. Since that point, he has been, while out on bail, has been attempting to obtain employment while this case moved forward. Unfortunately, Mr. Turner was unable to do so. In speaking with him, and I don't really think it comes to much of a shock that when he would apply for jobs and they initially saw that he was charged with felony murder, makes it very hard for an employer to want to take someone on in that position. But then after Mr. Turner accepted responsibility and entered the guilty plea to felony murder, that made it then even harder for Mr. Turner to try to obtain employment while we waited to see what was going to happen with the other co-defendants. We were unsure in terms of how much time it was going to take before Mr. Turner's case could come to conclusion and be sentenced. So he took it upon himself to try to still, even at that point, after being convicted, try to obtain employment. But again, I think it makes it even harder at that point when an employer sees that someone was convicted of that then and is awaiting sentencing. It's almost impossible at that point then to get employment, even at something part-time. So during this period of time where Mr. Turner was out on bond, he stayed home. He was caring for his 2 children while his wife had to work now that much harder to support all 4 of them, because prior to this, Mr. Turner and his employment allowed him to make it a lot easier on their family financially. Mr. Turner, and in a moment when I'm done, I anticipate going to make a brief statement to the court. This has been something that has been incredibly difficult on Mr. Turner and his family. He did not take anything that was associated with this case lightly. This was something where, as counsel indicated very early on, Mr. Turner, respectfully, even against, and I'll say this, against my advice, was more than willing to reach out and try to resolve this case short of trial. This was a decision that Mr. Turner made on his own because he first did not want to put this through a jury trial. He did not want it to be perceived that he believed that everything that he did that day was appropriate, and he was more than willing to accept responsibility for the choices that he made that day. But I do think what's important, and as counsel indicated, this is a situation where different people that were involved have different levels of culpability, different actions that ultimately...
Sorry, Mr. Last, I'm going to have to interrupt. Gentlemen in the back with the cameras, we're only set for one network to be here today. So
I'm replacing him once he's done.
Okay, understood. All right, thank you. Back to Mr. Last, back on the record.
And I want to, and I think it's important, I think everyone's involvement here is important to highlight and look at, but obviously what we're here for right now is Mr. Turner's involvement, Mr. Turner's actions, and the decisions that he made. And some of those decisions, respectfully, I believe were correct decisions. Other decisions that Mr. Turner made that day, I agree, and Mr. Turner admits were not the right decision, were not the correct decision. And unfortunately, those decisions ultimately led to where we're at today. It's been, as I indicated, it's been difficult on Mr. Turner because along this process, there's been a number of times where he's wanted people to know and understand his perspective and his feelings and his beliefs as to why he did what he did. And obviously, it's not appropriate for him to engage in that process while the case is going on. But finally now, Mr. Turner, at this point, has an opportunity to express his voice, both through myself and through his comments, as to why he did what he did, what led up to it, and things like that. So in some regard, I think it's a weight off of his shoulders that his feelings and beliefs are going to be able to be heard today. Mr. Turner did not wake up that morning with the intention of harming Mr. Mitchell. He did not wake up that morning with the intent to cause Mr. Mitchell's death. That was not what Mr. Turner expected was going to happen that day. Throughout my involvement with Mr. Turner, and as you can see from the fact that he's 36 years old with no prior criminal record, I'm not aware, and counsel could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not even aware of any referrals to their office for any illegal conduct on behalf of Mr. Turner at any point in his life. He's not, in my experience with him, an inherently violent person. He's not a person who acts aggressively in a normal basis, in a normal day. On the day of this incident, Mr. Turner was not working at the hotel. He was on vacation. Mr. Turner ended up at the hotel that day because he and his wife decided that they were going to come down and get some food, I believe from the George Webb's that's across the street from the hotel. When Mr. Turner and his wife got there that day, I believe that his wife got out of the vehicle. She went inside to get the food for their family. What we learned then from Mr. Turner's statement to the police is that it's at this point in time where he observes Mr. Mitchell outside of the hotel. Mr. Turner indicated to the police that he observed Mr. Mitchell and I believe a second individual, what he described as panhandling, asking guests that were coming out of the hotel, people that were walking down the sidewalk for money, essentially, in his words, bothering the guests. Now, Mr. Turner had no reason to get out of his vehicle. He could have observed this. He could have waited for his wife to get back in the car with their food and could have driven away and had a beautiful day with his wife and kids and continued on with his vacation. It's not what Mr. Turner did. And the reason he didn't do that is what you'll learn if you sit down and actually talk with Mr. Turner for an extended period of time. He took the fact that he worked in security at that hotel very seriously. He enjoyed being a security guard. He described it to me as it was a passion of his. It was something positive in his life that he had respect for and believed that he earned respect from other people from holding that position. And he took that job very seriously. He cared for the people that he worked with. He cared for the guests at the hotel. So much so that that day, instead of staying in his car, like he should have probably, he got out and verbally engaged with Mr. Mitchell. And according to what Mr. Turner tells the police, essentially asks Mr. Mitchell to move along, to stop bothering the guests at the hotel. And in hindsight, I understand that you could look at that and say, well, obviously Mr. Turner is going to say that because that kind of starts the process of moving down the road of what ultimately results in Mr. Mitchell's death. But as we learn, as the police get involved with this investigation and start speaking with people at the hotel, what we do learn is that that hotel has a lot of difficulties with homeless and vagrant people coming in and out of the hotel, bothering guests, using the restrooms there to do drugs, have sex, take showers. This is what we learn from the interviews that police have with the other individuals that work at this hotel. So it's known to Mr. Turner that this is something that he has to deal with when he's on shift, dealing with individuals of this nature at the hotel. So what Mr. Turner tells the police is he asks Mr. Mitchell to move along. That's not what happens. We see on the video, at the beginning of the video, we see Mr. Mitchell then running through the lobby of the hotel, running to I believe that's the gift shop. There's a Starbucks coffee shop in there, running through there. We then see him run to the women's bathroom. And again, at this point, Mr. Turner could have turned around and said, you know what, I tried fixing this problem. It's not my problem. I'm not working today. I'm just going to get back in my car and have a day with my wife. But he didn't. And he didn't do that to be aggressive. He didn't do that because he didn't like Mr. Mitchell. He didn't do that because he thought that Mr. Mitchell's life didn't mean anything. He did that because he cared about his employment. He cared about the place that he worked for. Unfortunately, it wasn't a two-way street because, as we learned almost quickly, the hotel has no problem throwing Mr. Turner under the bus, cutting ties with him, and leaving him out to dry. But Mr. Turner cares so much about this job, and I address this because this, I believe, speaks to who he is as a person. He goes into the hotel. He tries to address the issue with Mr. Mitchell. He does not start off by chasing after Mr. Mitchell. He doesn't, you don't see him on video running with weapons, immediately tackling Mr. Mitchell, being violent with him. It's not what Mr. Turner did. What we see is we see him walk through the hotel, and the first interaction that we see then of Mr. Turner and Mr. Mitchell inside the hotel is when Mr. Turner is trying to get Mr. Mitchell out of the women's bathroom. What we learned when you review the interviews that law enforcement did, the bathroom that Mr. Mitchell ran into had two women in there. The police interviewed both of those women. What we learn is one of the women, I believe it may have been I don't know which one it was, but one of the women, after Mr. Mitchell runs into the women's bathroom and shuts the door, asks Mr. Mitchell if she can get out. And Mr. Mitchell says no. So at this point now, Mr. Turner sees someone who is not supposed to be at the hotel, who's running through the lobby, who now runs into, as a male, into the women's bathroom. And Mr. Turner, again, could have walked away. but he didn't. He chose to try to alleviate the situation. And we see on the video Mr. Turner trying to get Mr. Mitchell out of the women's bathroom, a place he had no right to be. There was no reason for Mr. Mitchell to be there. Mr. Turner does not grab Mr. Mitchell and start punching and kicking and hitting him to get him out of the women's bathroom. We see on the video Mr. Turner trying to pull the door open. Mr. Mitchell is pulling back, trying to shut the door. Eventually, Mr. Mitchell does come out of the bathroom. And again, Mr. Turner, we see on the video, is trying to escort Mr. Mitchell out of the hotel. Again, a place he has no right to be and no reason to be. And then we see what happens. There's a physical altercation. Mr. Turner ultimately is striking and strikes Mr. Mitchell a number of different times. But what you also see on that video is at no point does Mr. Mitchell, is he trying to leave the hotel? At no point is Mr. Mitchell put his hands up and say, you know what, I'm out of here. Mr. Turner is simply trying to get him out of the hotel, and Mr. Mitchell refuses to do so. You even see him on the video as he's being dragged out. He's grabbing onto the door, trying to pull himself back into the hotel. Now, Mr. Turner is responsible for the decisions that he made. Mr. Turner is responsible for the choices that he made that day and the actions that he made. No one forced him to get involved. No one forced him to strike Mr. Mitchell. Those were choices that Mr. Turner made of his own, and that is why he resolved the case the way that he did. That is why Mr. Turner is more than willing to accept responsibility for his involvement, because he knows that at least somewhere along the way his actions were wrong. But from the beginning to the end, Mr. Turner has been nothing but cooperative along this process. As counsel indicated, he called 911. We see it on the video, Mr. Turner calling 911 outside the hotel. Mr. Turner stayed on scene. The police arrived. He spoke to the police on scene about what happened. The police then asked him if he would come down to the police station that same day, provide a statement about what happened, and he was more than willing to do so. And he provided a statement of what I just outlined to the court about what happened. Mr. Turner then, I believe, was driven back to the hotel by law enforcement after he provided a statement. He went home and remained in the community, knowing that this was being investigated by the police, knowing that Mr. Mitchell passed away, and knowing that it was likely that he was probably going to be charged with something as a result of this. He stayed in the community, and he waited, and he waited, and he waited until August 8th of last year, when he voluntarily walked in to his initial appearance to face the felony murder charge that was filed against him. Mr. Turner did not flee from the police that day. He did not refuse to cooperate with the police that day, even though it probably would have been in his best interest not to. He did not flee after knowing this was being investigated. He did not flee after I informed him he was being charged with felony murder and that we needed to appear in court. He stayed because his life is here, his family is here, and he's willing to face the difficulty of having to deal with this case. These are the aspects of Mr. Turner's character that speak volumes about the person that he is, about what he stands for, and the type of man that he is. Mr. Turner was then taken into custody on August 8th at his initial appearance. He remained in custody for 16 days until August 23rd, when he was released on bond. After being released on bond on August 23rd of last year, Mr. Turner did not flee. Now, having received the discovery, having seen the evidence...
Deputies, could I have one of you step out in the hall, please? Back to Mr. Last.
Knowing what the evidence was, knowing what he was facing, again, still did not flee, and he remained here in the community. He continued to make court appearances. He continued to engage in this process and did not run. He was on Justice Point supervision.
Okay, before we continue, we're having some disruptions in the hall. I want to make it clear, if this kind of thing continues, I'm going to be clearing the courtroom and clearing the hallways. These disruptions apparently stem from the victim's family aggressively confronting one of the co-defendants. The co-defendants are all out of custody. They have to be able to get into this courtroom. If this continues, and ma'am who's leaving right now, I'm going to say right now, anyone who leaves this morning is not coming back. Back to Mr. Last.
Thank you. And as I indicated, while out on bail, Mr. Turner was supervised by Justice Point. We received a number of reports. There was never an issue with Mr. Turner's cooperation with Justice Point. There was never an issue with him being out on custody while this case was pending, both before he entered his plea and after. Again, this is the conduct. These are the aspects of Mr. Turner, the decisions that he makes that speak volumes, again, as to his character and who he is as a person. Mr. Turner is regretful and is saddened by the outcome of the events that happened at the hotel. As I indicated, this was not what Mr. Turner was looking for. This was not what Mr. Turner expected to happen that day, both before he got involved with Mr. Mitchell and after he got involved with Mr. Mitchell. This was not something that he expected to happen, but unfortunately it did. And as a result of that, Mr. Turner does have to live with the fact that he played a role in Mr. Mitchell's death. But this was a situation, as I indicated at the beginning, I think, unfortunately, was entirely avoidable. There were actions by not only Mr. Turner, but the other individuals that worked for the hotel, as well as Mr. Mitchell, where if different decisions and different choices were made that day, Mr. Mitchell would not have died.
Thank you, Mr. Last. I'm sorry, are you finished? Or?
Not yet, almost.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to wrap up. We need to move on. Thank you.
I guess just finally, as counsel indicated, the cause of death in this was restraint asphyxia. I think it's also important to note that it doesn't stop there. It's also toxic effects of cocaine and methamphetamine. And the medical examiner did indicate that significant contributors to Mr. Mitchell's death were hypertensive cardiovascular disease, which I believe the ME testified at the preliminary hearing was likely the result of prolonged drug use by Mr. Mitchell, and also morbid obesity. Those were the factors that led to Mr. Mitchell's death.
Again, I'm sorry, who's speaking in the gallery? I'm going to start removing people. I just want everyone to be aware of that. If I hear comments from the gallery again, I'm going to just clear the courtroom, and none of you will be present for these sentencing hearings, except the people who have to be here. Back to Mr. Last.
That all being said, Your Honor, as I indicate, I do believe that a probationary sentence is appropriate. I think Mr. Turner has accepted responsibility. He now has to live with not only the facts of this case moving forward, but having this conviction on his record for felony murder moving forward. He has shown both before this incident as well as subsequently that he is someone we can entrust in the community. He's not a danger to the community. He's not someone who would pose a threat if placed on probation. So for all those reasons, I do believe that a probationary sentence is more than sufficient in this case. And I would ask that the court fashion a sentence to impose and stay a sentence, place Mr. Turner on probation for 1 year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I've heard from the parties now. Mr. Turner, this is your chance to speak. Anything you want to say, sir? Please use the microphone.
I want to apologize to Ms. Giles personally, his mother and his father. I want to apologize. I want to apologize to the Mitchell's family for all this confusion and all of us being here. This could have been easily avoided. I never intended for none of this to happen.
Thank you, sir. All right, thank you, Mr. Turner. All right, I believe that concludes the parties' presentations. I want to thank everyone who spoke today. This is a very difficult day for all of you. I'm going to take a moment off the record. I'll explain the sentence in a moment. Okay, thanks everyone. Back on the record. So with any sentencing, there are certain parts of the sentence that are mandatory, and I'm going to run through those mandatory parts right now. First, Mr. Turner, with the felony conviction, you may not possess a firearm at any time in the future. Section 941.29 of the statutes makes it another felony for anyone who has been convicted of a felony to ever possess a firearm, carrying with it its own 10-year period of imprisonment or $25,000 fine or both. Also, you cannot vote in any election until your civil rights are restored, and you are required to provide a DNA sample to the state crime lab and to pay a DNA surcharge for this one count. You are advised that if this conviction is reversed, set aside, or vacated, you may qualify to have the DNA sample data expunged if you meet other conditions under statute. Further, you may not possess body armor at any time in the future. Section 941.291 of the statutes makes it another felony for anyone who has been convicted of this felony to ever possess body armor, carrying with it its own 15-year period of imprisonment or $50,000 fine or both. So when considering a sentence, the court looks at certain factors, and these are set forth in the state statutes and case law. We first look at the gravity of the offense. And here we have an offense where Mr. Turner, as one of 4 people, caused the death of Devontae Mitchell And I know I've said it before, but for Mr. Mitchell's family and loved ones, you know, my heart goes out to you. I am so sorry this happened, and I'm so sorry for your loss. When we talk about a sentencing, though, we have to look at what happened and what the different responsibilities of the individuals who were present and were participating, what their roles were. And here, it's clear that Mr. Turner did not intend to cause Mr. Mitchell's death. It's very clear from the video. It's clear from all of the facts that have been placed before the court that this was unfortunately an accident, and a terrible accident that was caused by a series of factors and occurrences. But I have to say, what really concerns me about this case is it shows that we simply do not have enough law enforcement officers on the street in areas where we know crimes occur regularly, and the Hyatt is one of those places. This was a Sunday afternoon. There was no particular reason for a crime to occur, but we know, again, that this neighborhood, unfortunately, is afflicted with low-level street crime because we have a large homeless population and a large number of people who suffer from drug and alcohol problems who frequent this area. And we don't have enough police officers on the street in the area on most occasions, and we also don't have sufficient mental health treatment that's available for individuals who are going through the kind of crisis that Mr. Mitchell was going through. The toxicology reports are clear. He had substantial amounts of cocaine and methamphetamine in his system. That's not disputed. He was also clearly not in his right mind, as you can see on the video, where he is running through the lobby of the Hyatt, running into the women's restroom, running out, continually trying to get back into the hotel when there's no reason for him to be there. There's obviously not a situation where he is able to think rationally. Unfortunately, there weren't trained individuals nearby to handle and help him with this mental health crisis. And so we have 2 security guards and 2 hotel employees who do what they think is the right thing to do. And unfortunately, that caused Mr. Mitchell's death because they made terrible mistakes in carrying out their jobs. But again, there was no intent to kill here, and that's very clear from the facts. The state and Mr. Turner reached an agreement, which makes sense given all of these factors. The gravity of the offense is serious because, again, Mr. Mitchell's life was taken, but this is not a situation where that was anyone's intent, and I'm not even convinced that this rose to the level of reckless behavior, although I think there was clearly negligence from what we see in the video. Now, next we look at the character of the defendant and his rehabilitative needs. Here, Mr. Turner has no criminal record. He has worked his entire adult life. I don't see any particular rehabilitative needs. There's no evidence here of any drug or alcohol issue on his part. Instead, he was put in the position of someone having to help someone else negotiate that type of crisis with almost no training. The need to protect the public is our last factor, and here, ironically, Mr. Turner was the one helping protect the public that day. So when I look at our state sentencing objectives, they begin with protection of the public, second, rehabilitation, and third, deterrence. I agree with the state here that this case is appropriate for probation. Confinement is not necessary to protect the public here from further criminal activity of Mr. Turner. He has no criminal record other than this case. He does not need correctional treatment that's available only if confined, and it would not unduly depreciate the seriousness of this offense if probation were granted. So that will be the court's order today. The court is not ordering restitution. There is no, do we have a claim? Okay.
No, Judge.
Okay, there is no claim filed, so court will set restitution at 0. The court is also not imposing any fines. The court waives waivable costs. The court, though, orders Mr. Turner that you pay all mandatory costs and surcharges and assessments within 2 years of today's date. This is an imposed state and state sentence, so the court directs the DOC, if Mr. Turner is revoked, to collect any monetary amounts ordered today at a rate to be determined by the DOC from Mr. Turner's prison funds. If revoked, any monetary amounts that remain unpaid when he is released from confinement are to be paid as a condition of extended supervision, and any monetary amounts that remain unpaid when the sentence is completed are ordered reduced to a judgment against Mr. Turner for any unpaid balance, and collection can then proceed as provided by statute. As I noted, this is an imposed and state sentence. The court imposes and stays a total of 2 years in the state prison system 1 year of initial confinement, and 1 year of extended supervision, concurrent to any other sentence. If revoked, Mr. Turner, you are not eligible for early release programming due to the nature of this offense. This is imposed and stayed in exchange for 12 months of probation. During this probationary period, you have to comply with certain factors. First, maintain absolute sobriety. No possession or use of any alcohol or any controlled substance is permitted unless you have a valid prescription, and follow prescription instructions. Participate in an AODA evaluation and any AODA treatment recommended by probation. You may not possess a firearm, ammunition, magazine, holster, or body armor. And again, remember that prohibition on firearms is for life, not just for this probationary sentence. You must continue to pursue full-time or part-time work and/or school. No contact with any member of Mr. Mitchell's family. No violations of law arising to the level of probable cause. The court imposes and stays 6 months of condition time as agreed by the parties. That condition time would include release for Huber privileges to be determined by the CRC staff, again, if condition time is found to be appropriate by Mr. Turner's agent. There's credit for 16 days time served. The court grants credit for those 16 days as against the imposed and stayed sentence. Mr. Turner, you have the right to appeal. Any notice of intent to pursue post-conviction relief must be filed with the clerk of this court within 20 days of sentencing. Your lawyer must continue to represent you until your decision to seek post-conviction relief or not is made. If you wish to seek that relief, your lawyer must file that notice within this 20-day time period. Madam Clerk, this is the written explanation of determinate sentence. Mr. Turner, that explains the imposed and stayed sentence. It does not explain the probationary sentence. Again, you'll have to work through that with probation as you complete this probationary term. Hey, parties, is there anything I haven't covered? Mr. Flaherty?
No, Judge.
Okay, Mr. Last?
No, Your Honor.
All right. This is going to be a difficult day for everyone. All right, thanks for your statements. We'll continue again shortly. We're going to take about a 10-minute break. Court is adjourned.
We'll go anything in this. We'll take a walk.
I'll be right back.
We do have other court appearances that we're trying to deal with. What? I don't know what the tease is, so I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's just you gotta repress the camera. Windows. Okay.